Welcome to another FAR walkthrough video. I'm Logan, and in today's video we're going to be going over the purpose and objectives of the Statement of Activities. And we're going to be doing that the super fast CPA way, which is diving straight into questions. If you don't know much about our strategies, make sure you go to superfastcpa.com and check out our free 1-hour webinar training. We go over the key ingredients to passing the CPA exam, and again, it's only 1 hour, it is free, and we will show you how to be effective and efficient with your studying so you don't waste time. Also, just letting you know, we will only be going over 4 questions in this video, and there's not going to be a member version for this one, or in other words, the member version and the YouTube version will be the same because, again, this is a small topic that I don't think needs to be hit more than just with 4 questions. But normally there's the YouTube version that has 5 or 6 questions and a member version that has 10 or 12 questions, and we post those in the member forum when they're available. So if you like this, you can get more of it by becoming a Superfast CPA member. With all that said, let's dive straight into the questions. All right, here we are at question 1, and again, this is a very straightforward topic because we're only talking about the purpose of the Statement of Activities for nonprofit organizations. We're going to talk about preparing it and adjusting it in the next videos, but we're just talking about the purpose and how they accomplish that purpose in this video. So let's go into question 1. What is the primary purpose of the Statement of Activities for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity? Okay, right away we're asking what is the purpose, and in the following questions we're going to talk a little bit about how they accomplish that purpose. So let's go ahead and dive straight into the answer for this one so that we can understand what the point of the Statement of Activities is. All right, the answer is C, to show the changes in net assets, including revenues, expenses, gains, and losses during a reporting period. So let's dive into this. Basically, it's an income statement. The Statement of Activities is a core financial statement for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity serving a similar role to the income statement in for-profit organizations. Its primary purpose is to provide a detailed account of how the entity's net assets have changed over a specific reporting period. This includes all revenues, expenses, gains, and losses, with a focus on distinguishing between changes in net assets that are without donor restrictions and those that are with donor restrictions. By doing so, the statement offers a clear picture of the financial performance and the overall financial health of the organization. It enables stakeholders such as donors, grantors, and board members to understand how resources were utilized, the effectiveness of the organization's operations, and how well it has fulfilled its mission. So essentially, just to summarize that, it's basically the income statement for not-for-profit organizations. It shows the revenues, the expenses, gains, losses, all those different changes that occurred that will then go to affect the net assets on the statement of financial position. Kind of like, again, how a income statement flows into a balance sheet, the statement of activities flows into the statement of financial position. And in the next few questions, we're just going to talk about a few of the ways that they do that, like how they show those different parts of the activities in the statement of activities. So let's go to the next question to learn a little bit more about that. All right, here we are at question 2. In the Statement of Activities for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity, how are expenses typically categorized? So how do they break down the expenses to show what they're trying to show in the Statement of Activities, which again is the changes in net assets? How do they break them down? How do they categorize them? If you don't know, that's okay. If you haven't really dealt with not-for-profit entities before, we're just going to dive straight into the answer again to learn how this works. All right, the answer is C, by functional categories such as program services, management and general, and fundraising. So these are the typical categories that expenses are broken up into for the Statement of Activities so that people can kind of see where the different expenses are going to. In a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity, expenses in the Statement of Activities are typically categorized by these functional categories. This approach groups expenses based on their purpose within the organization, such as program services, which directly support the mission of the organization, management and general, which include administrative and operational costs, so kind of how they run the organization, and fundraising, which involves activities to secure contributions. So what expenses are they putting out there so that they can then get contributions? Kind of, what are the activities they're doing to get contributions? This functional classification helps stakeholders understand how the organization allocates its resources to different activities and assesses the efficiency and effectiveness of its operations in fulfilling its mission. So overall, they break down the expenses into these 3 categories to kind of show where the expenses are going so that people can know how the resources are being used and how things are affecting the net assets. So that's how they break down the expenses. Let's go to the next question. All right, here we are at question 3. In the Statement of Activities for a non-governmental, not-for-profit entity, how are revenues typically classified? So we just barely talked about how the expenses are broken up typically. How are the revenues typically broken up? Are they by time? Are they by the source? Are they by restricted or unrestricted? Are they by cash or in kind? Now, if you've watched the previous few videos where we've talked about the statement of financial position, you know that a big deal on that is the net assets that are restricted or unrestricted based on donors. So that's probably something that's going to affect the statement of activities as well. So let's dive into the answer to see. And yes, the answer is by restricted or unrestricted based on donor imposed restrictions. So that's how revenue is accounted for in the statement of activities, whether it's restricted or unrestricted by donors. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Revenues in the statement of activities for a non-governmental not-for-profit entity are typically classified based on whether they are restricted or unrestricted according to donor imposed restrictions. Revenues without donor restrictions are those that the organization can use for any purpose in line with its mission. Revenues with donor restrictions, on the other hand, must be used for specific purposes or within certain timeframes as specified by the donor. This classification ensures transparency and accountability, helping stakeholders understand how the organization's financial resources are controlled and utilized in accordance with donor intentions. So the statement of activities not only helps people see how the money is being spent, but also how they're handling the money that they are given. Are they following the wishes of the donors? Are they following the restrictions put in place by the donors? And where is the money coming from? Is it mainly coming from donors who are putting restrictions on the money, or is it mainly coming from donors who aren't putting restrictions on the money? These are the different things that they're trying to show in the statement of activities to give a broad picture and a better picture of how the money is being received and used. So that's how they break up the revenues. Let's go to one more question to learn a little bit more about the purpose of the statement of activities. All right, here we are at question 4. What type of note is typically required in the financial statements of a non-governmental not-for-profit entity about the nature of expenses? So we talked about the expenses before. They're typically broken up into program, management and administrative, and fundraising, but there's a lot of different kinds of expenses. So what note is required for the statement of activities? Now, if you don't really know anything about not-for-profit accounting, that's okay. We're going to dive straight into the answer for this one as well. All right, and the answer is D, a note on the functional and natural classifications of expenses. Now, what does that really mean? Let's read a little bit about it here. A note on the functional and natural classification of expenses is typically required in the financial statements of a non-governmental not-for-profit entity. This note provides detailed information about the nature of expenses by breaking them down into natural categories such as salaries, rent, and supplies, in addition to the functional categories reported in the statement of activities. So, there's this note that breaks it down even further so that it's not just showing program services, management, and fundraising, but it's also showing the different pieces of each of those. How much of the program services is related to salary, how much of the management and administrative expenses are related to rent. So it breaks it down a little bit more so you can get an even better picture of where the expenses are going instead of just those 3 broad categories. It ensures that stakeholders have a comprehensive understanding of the organization's expenses, enhancing transparency and enabling better assessment of how resources are used to support the entity's mission. So in this video, we've talked about the purpose and how they accomplish that purpose. Before we do anything else, let's do one more part of the process called pillar topics. Now, the idea behind pillar topics with Superfast CPA is as you're going through the questions to learn the material, you will notice the things that keep popping up in the questions. You will notice questions trying to teach you the purpose of this, or trying to teach you how to categorize the expenses in a statement of activities, or different things like that. And you will notice the key things that keep popping up. So you take a moment and you write those down as your pillar topics so that you know them for later. It's kind of a summary of the key points. Let's go ahead and look at the pillar topics for this video. All right, here are the pillar topics. First off, for the purpose of the statement of activities, and again, that's kind of the whole thing behind this video, the statement of activities shows changes in net assets, distinguishing between revenues and expenses with and without donor restrictions. So that's the whole point of it. It's basically an income statement to show the changes in net assets through revenues and expenses and gains and losses. Now, as far as the classification of expenses, expenses are categorized by functional areas such as program services and fundraising, and also management and administrative, to show resource allocation within the organization. And another part of that is there's typically a note on the expenses that kind of breaks it out even more. It details the natural classification of expenses such as salaries and rent and things like that, alongside their functional classification, enhancing that financial transparency. So again, it basically takes those categories, that program, the management and administrative, and the fundraising, and breaks it out even more into its natural classification so you can see where things are going. What salaries are part of program, what salaries are part of fundraising, and things like that. And then last of all, revenues are classified based on donor-imposed restrictions, ensuring transparency in how funds are utilized. So revenues are broken up into with or without donor restrictions. And that's how the statement of activities accomplishes its purpose of showing the changes in net assets. It does that by showing these different classifications of expenses so that you know where the money is going, and then also breaks down what the revenue is and how it's restricted or not restricted. And those are the pillar topics for this video, and that is the end of the video. Before you go, make sure you check out our free 1-hour webinar training on superfastcpa.com. Again, it's only 1 hour, and we will show you how to pass the CPA exam without wasting months or even years of your time. Also, just a reminder, we only went over 4 questions in this video, and there's not going to be a member version of this video where there's additional questions, just because, again, it's a very simple topic. We're going to dive more into how to prepare a statement of activities in the next video, and that will have a member version. And member versions typically have double the amount of questions so that you can get more practice. So if you liked this, you can get more of it by becoming a Superfast CPA member. If you liked the video, make sure to like it and leave a comment. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.